what are the innovations that you've seen from brands and agencies across the Twitter sphere that are the most meaningful to you, that you think represent where advertising is heading vis-a-vis Twitter?
Right. I think there are a couple of things. One is brands are being honest. They're personalizing themselves. They're talking about human beings to other people. And for the first time, potentially, they're opening up to receiving feedback and responding to feedback in a real time and a live way, which make them seem more authentic and honest from the user's perspective. The second thing is, many of the brands, for instance, Reebok is a good example, they're letting their users and followers do the talking on their behalf. They launched a shoe, a new line of shoes a couple of weeks ago called Easy Tones. And all they did, pretty much, apart from just answering questions, was retweeting other people's feedback on how great the shoe was. And it was a long list in general. And all they did was they had the power to just shine the light on testimonials, and everybody else could make up their mind based on that. Another example is sort of P&G. I talk about that because they did an interesting ad campaign during the Olympics about moms of athletes and how they all use Tide and et cetera. And I don't know if they were on Twitter looking at what the conversation around that ad was, but it was extremely positive. There were a lot of people talking about how wonderful that ad experience was. Now, if you imagine P&G or Tide were to participate in Twitter also, they could essentially make that graph go higher, start earlier, and plateau at a higher level if they would participate. So that's part of some of the things that we think about is how do we make those brands and ads more useful to people's daily lives?
Thank you. I mean, what this brings up, and hearing you talk about authenticity, honesty, integrity, there's clearly a new divide between ads and edit in social media. You know, we're used to the sort of Chinese wall in the old magazine world that sort of came under some pressure with the advent of the web and the need for monetization. It sounds like there's sort of a new wall emerging. So for you, Jay, when you think about Yelp, how do you leverage, how do advertisers leverage user-generated content without compromising the integrity and authenticity of the user?
Yeah, I almost cried this morning when Frank Cooper talked about the red pill and the blue pill. Ultimately, advertisers are going to have to get used to truth, right? And over time, it is a relationship a relationship between a consumer and a brand, takes a long time to foster. And what we look at Yelp is ultimately there are a lot of points where you actually have your consumers, and to use his words, you have the ability to elevate those consumers. So when you think about, let's say, by the way, 86% of Yelp reviews are in fact positive. But if you do have those rare situations where the 15% that may not be glowing reviews, you have an opportunity as a brand advertiser to go and touch that consumer in a way that in fact makes them more of a net promoter after you respond to their concerns, and then they become linked in with that brand, and in fact become stronger customers for you over time. So I mean, that's kind of the way we look at it, and the truthfulness of the reviews will remain steady. It's how marketers react to that truth.
Just keeping with you, I had some guesses from 50 cents to $20 CPM.
Yeah.
So the ad unit you showed with the review in it, who was the advertiser in that case?
I think it was maybe Little Star Pizza in San Francisco.
Little Star Pizza in San Francisco. 1,500 impressions?
Yes.
Ish?
Yeah, 1,500 impressions for
don't say it, don't say it.
Okay.
Okay. So who thinks the effective CPM was over $20? Over $40? Over $60? Over $80? Maybe over 80? Over $100? Over $120? Raise your hand. Who thinks over $120? Over $150? Come on. How many hands are there?
Couple.
Okay. Who thinks it was over $200? I got to get all these hands down at some point. Who thinks it was over $250? I got one, no? Nobody thinks it was over $250 effective CPM. What was it?
I think it's actually a $200 CPM on that.
Okay.
And you know, for instance, in the dental category, we're selling 500 impressions for $300 you know, per month on a subscription basis. At the end of the day, when you think about it, if by the time I'm on Yelp and I'm looking for a dentist, I'm not looking at an old girlfriend somewhere. It's not fun to look for dentists. I'm making a decision, my wallet's out, I'm gonna go pick a dentist, and it's pretty targeted. And specifically as we get to the geo aspect of it, it gets pretty powerful there. So,
so how do you teach your salespeople? I mean, what are you telling them? How are you telling them to price it? What are the conversations like with these advertisers?
Sure.
When the price comes up, what am I paying?
Sure. So you know, we can look at our average engagement on the ads, and if it's anywhere between, you know, let's pick a number. Let's say it's 1.5% on those ads, and I go, I'm a dentist, and I go out and buy 500 ads. Well, you know, I've got 5 people at 1% that are in fact coming in and engaging with that page that is very powerful and expresses opinions. And you know, we know from some internal studies that, you know, on average, a Yelp user is, you know, looks at 2 to 4 businesses before making a decision. And presumably, you don't want to read through dentist ads for, you know, your entire day. And so ultimately there's a very high ROI on that, because as you know, if you become a dental, if you start going to a dentist, the lifetime value of that customer is very high. And it's very specific. We can deliver people who are looking for that service at that time in that location. So,
Tim, social ads at Facebook, how do you charge for them?
So today we charge, within our brand and display offering, we just charge a rate card, fixed CPM. And then
Which
within
is ballpark?
we don't talk about pricing. No, a couple dollars, effective CPM. So kind of a classic. I mean, when you look at an effective basis, if you buy the homepage for a day, you're kind of paying what you comparably would pay on an effective CPM basis at Yahoo or YouTube or some other place. And then we also sell it within the self-service platform. So you're able to, within that platform, if you have one of those things that I mentioned, one of those hooks that I mentioned that creates social context, it happens automatically. And in fact, it actually brings down pricing because it increases our estimated click-through rate by virtue of the fact that we know we're showing social context, which drops their CPC.
And in terms of the previous question about ads and edit, how do you think about that? I mean,
ads and what?
Ads and edit, right? How do you sort of distinguish between, because you said before that the part of the goal is to make the ads look like content.
Yeah.
Where does that break down? Where do you have to maintain, and how do you maintain a difference between advertising content? I mean, with Google, it's
Yep.
fairly clear
Yep.
what's paid and what's not.
I mean, I think we've learned a couple things. One is that you have to be very careful at the point at which you acquire the social context that you're going to eventually potentially pair with an ad, and we've learned that painfully, that you have to be very clear with the user that, hey, you know, you're fanning this page, you're doing this, you're doing this. You either have to be clear because it's just the norm that what you do on Facebook gets broadcast out and may get paired with an ad, or if it's offsite, you have to be explicitly clear that, hey, we are taking this review that you've written and we're pushing it back to your friends, and
Sure.
by the way, that may get distributed through advertising as well. And then with the ad itself, I think you just have to be explicit about calling out exactly, you know, what the content is. Is it sponsored? Is the distribution of it being paid for by someone, or is it not? And we're explicit with that in our product.